So good evening, everybody, and welcome to the virtual chapter for July 2022. It is an amazing month and all kinds of great things are going on. So I want to get to some announcements, but before we do that, I want to let you know that you can get, what do we need to tell you here? You can get some CEUs, by the way, because you are spending this time with us tonight. Isn't that really a cool, groovy thing? All you have to do is go to the IACT or IMDHA websites if you are a member of those organizations. And when you log in, there's a box of your profile information and stuff like that pops up, and you can put in that you spent some time with Michael, Karen, and Sherry, and you want to be compensated, and they will do that for you. So there's that. What else comes in this part, Karen? Your microphone is muted, I think, my friend.
Sorry, I'm sorry about that. I just wanted to say that if you belong to any other organization as well for which you need CEUs, they often take these as well. Most friendly organizations are glad to take these give you CEUs for spending this time with us. So just check in with them.
Okay, cool. So, and then a few announcements that I want to make before we get started as well. And by the way, Karen is going to share a special feature with us in just a little bit before our main speaker, and then we'll switch over to Sherry. So exciting things going on. First and foremost, first and foremost, my vacation, ladies and gentlemen. I just thought you might need to know that on Monday I'm taking off for Chicago, which will be wonderful and exciting. I'm going to be there a week and getting home just in time to turn around and head out the door once again to HypnoThoughts in Las Vegas. I know Karen is going to be there, of course. So this is one of our great chances to actually, get together in the same room and all that. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to be doing a presentation on generative trance on Friday morning at HypnoThoughts, if any of you are there, and you might be interested in that. Karen is going to be doing her goal affirmation workshop on Saturday afternoon at 4:30. I'm going to be part of an anxiety panel, and you can see why, because it's Sunday morning very early. So I'll be all prepared, and that's a 9 a.m. Panel. Do you have something else that I missed, Karen, that you're doing at HypnoThoughts?
I know that's what I'm doing at HypnoThoughts. I will actually. I'm kind of excited. I'm attending Sean Carson's 2-day pre-conference workshop on tarot reading. So I just think that's going to be cool. I love getting metaphors in any way that I can, and I think that'll be another great way to get some metaphors out to clients.
Tarot is a root, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
So as we get to the root of the matter, the next thing that I want to tell you about, before HypnoThoughts, by the way, on my vacation, guess what? I'm having my 70th birthday
Wow.
celebration in Chicago. So anybody hanging around, there we go. Let's do that. And then after HypnoThoughts, we'll come back. The next thing on my agenda that I just wanted to tell you about. So this is a personal little ad promo. I've been talking to a lot of people lately who are in hypnosis. They've just barely gotten in hypnosis. They haven't gotten their feet yet, and they're still feeling a little anxious and not quite able to, to do what they want to do. I've also run into people looking for trainings, and there don't seem to be as many going on as there often are. So I'm doing something that's a little experimental, I think, and that is that I'm putting together a training. It's going to start on September 17th and 18th. It will be a weekend each month, September, October, November, and December. It'll be online. Those, and then, but it'll also be live for people that are in Orlando or want to come to this area and do it. So we're going to do a hybrid thing. God help us, but we keep learning more and more about how to handle it. And I think it's going to be great. But there are a couple. The point of it is that because of the two sort of different sets of needs, some looking for full certification, and some just looking for what I want to say, support and to get it going again. The course can be broken up, and you can just take like the foundation material or or certain parts of it if you want. So if you have any interest in any of that stuff, I'm not going to take any more time with it, but just contact me. It will be starting, like I said, September 17th and 18th, and it'll go on for 4 months. And there will be homework if you decide that you want to do it for certification. So it's going to be exciting, and some mentorship modules as well. So there's that. Now,
So I have one more announcement, if you don't mind.
please.
After Michael's class, where he's teaching, I will be doing the prequel because starting in October, I will do a hypnosis certification training. That would be the prequel to the advanced material he's teaching. And often the prequel comes after the original, does it not? At any rate, if you know anybody who wants to become a hypnotist, this will be some in person in Chicago and in Orlando, and mostly online, starting October 12th. So if you know anybody who wants to become a hypnotist, this is a very comprehensive course, and they can get IACT certification from it. So give me a call. KarenHand.com has all the information.
Did you say in Chicago and in Orlando?
Yes, because we start in Chicago. We do 2 days live in Chicago, and then I have my students attend the Mid-America Hypnosis Conference, and they attend specific speakers to add information and to let them start seeing that there are all kinds of ways to do hypnosis. And then we do absolute training for the weeks in between October and February. The end of February, we meet once a week for 4 hours online and do a lot of training online.
Okay.
And they learn to hypnotize online, and then we end up in Orlando before the ICBCH conference, and my IAC students will then all be prepared and ready to go to the Orlando conference in May.
Got it. And that's in May. So we'll look forward to seeing you.
Well, the first one's in March. The IACT conference is in May, of course.
Okay, and in March in Orlando.
Yeah, March 1st. Yeah.
Okay, cool, great. Yeah, and one more thing for IACT, Galaxy of the Stars coming up September 10th and 11th. I'm just going to really pull this up very quickly if you'll indulge me, because there's too much information in my head at one time. But it is September 10th and 11th. We have Barbara Scholl, who, by the way, is the sister of Hans Rudy. Some of you know who runs Omni in Switzerland. And Claudia Klein and Arlo Stadler are in South Africa, and Nicole Walker-Nagel in Switzerland, and Ed Jory in Spain. So we really are international. We're going to have a program about working with kids. We're going to have a program about optimizing your sessions for maximum benefit, which is the South African contingent. The Confident Hypnotist, Nicole Walker-Nagel, really helping you find whatever resources you need to be able to really go for it. And I'm looking forward to that. And Ed, I'm especially excited about flowing in hypnosis, something he and I have talked about quite a bit. And it's that experience that you may have when you really kind of know that you're going the right direction and you're not having to process it consciously and push it, but just floating in the river, having great experiences with your clients. It's going to be wonderful. So there you go. And here's the deal about these guys. All of these great trainers, okay, they each have a half a day, and the whole program, check this out, is $129, you say, for all of that. And you get the recordings afterwards on the lovely little flash drive, just like we've done in the past. But not only that, if you register before the 10th of August, it's only $99. So less than $100 for 2 great days worth of programming, wonderful presenters, and then a recording of all of the video and audio from the program that you can keep for your own self. So we hope you'll join us. It's going to be wonderful. I was going to say, one of the things that we always used to say when we were advertising a thing like this, we should say space is limited. But you know what? Space is not limited. See,
not anymore.
That's the thing about space. It just keeps going on. Have you guys seen the Hubble picture or the new telescope pictures in the last couple?
Yeah.
Oh my God, the universe is so darn big. I keep thinking one of these days we're going to discover that we're like in an aquarium on a bedside desk of some teenager on some other galaxy, and maybe the way the world will end is we'll get knocked off by the cat or something. Who knows? But it just keeps getting larger. So there we go. What an exciting time. So Karen, I am so glad that you're here tonight, and I know that you have some stuff that you would like to share with us. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and
oh. This is a pretty cool technique. One of my favorites. I like to do this with groups, and I like to do this with clients as well. And you might recognize a lot of NLP kind of treatments in this. So just play along with me, if you will. We'll all do this together. Does everybody raise your hand when you can come up with some limiting belief that you would like to get rid of? Do you have a limiting belief that you'd just like to go ahead and wipe away, get rid of? Great. Okay, I'm not going to pick on anybody to do it individually with you. We'll all do it together. Okay, so enough people have them. Okay, you've got your limiting belief. Now give a moments of thought to a better feeling belief for you. What would be a better belief to have than that one? You just have to think about it, and when you've got it, let me know. A nod or raise your hand. A better feeling belief. Good. Okay, keep those in mind. We're going to play with those and install that better feeling belief. Is that okay? All right. So, for a moment, I want you to imagine, and you can do this with your eyes open or your eyes closed. If you want to close your eyes, it blocks out other visual inputs, so sometimes that helps, or you can do it with your eyes open. It's your choice. Imagine, eyes open or closed, imagine that in front of you there was a glistening whiteboard. Perfectly clean and glistening there. It's kind of big. It's a big whiteboard. And there by it you see a marker. Pick up a marker and write on that whiteboard your limiting belief. Just write your limiting belief up on that board. Now you might also notice that we don't want to leave that up there, right? There's an eraser down there. There's a whiteboard eraser. Pick up that eraser and clean that limiting belief right off of there. Wipe it completely off. Left and right, you can go up and down. Wipe it completely off. Even get the corners. Make it glistening so that it's perfectly clean like it was before. When you've cleaned it back and forth, up and down, you can put that marker down. And now I'd love you to put that better feeling belief up on that whiteboard. Now you'll notice that there are colored markers there. You might want to write that better feeling belief in a colored marker. Put that better feeling belief up on that whiteboard. And now as you notice it there, you might notice that those letters should even have more colors. So colorize those letters. Give them bright, bold, individual colors. Colorize all of those letters in that better feeling belief. Colorize them all. And while you're doing that, add a soundtrack to it. Some uplifting music that you have in mind. Add a soundtrack to it, anything at all that you can add to it. Add that beautiful soundtrack to it, that uplifting music, and watch those letters start to dance on that whiteboard. Those letters of that better feeling belief begin to dance and move around and dance all over that whiteboard, bopping and dancing. And you happen to notice that they dance off that board right into your head. They're moving and dancing. That better feeling belief is dancing all the way into your head as it dances and swirls right there in your head. I'm curious, how many times would it have to swirl around there before that better feeling belief becomes a belief for you? Let it swirl and dance and move around. You know, hypnotic time is very quick. So if it needs 100 times, let it swirl quickly 100 times, whatever it takes. Let it swirl around that better feeling belief. Let it swirl until it becomes a belief for you. And then let it move all the way down your body into every cell, every corpuscle of your body, moving down and dancing all the way through your body, that better feeling belief. You might happen to notice as those letters are dancing around all the way through you, you might happen to notice that up there to your right is a billboard. If you don't mind, put that better feeling belief up on that billboard. Let it dance out of you and right up there for everybody to see. Put that better feeling belief right up there on that billboard. Oh, and put something with it. Maybe it's a picture next to it that will give you an image of that better feeling belief, that better thing for you. Put that better feeling belief to an image. You've got the soundtrack, you've got the image, and you've got the belief right up there that anytime you need a reminder, all you have to do is look up there on that billboard and you'll see your image and your better feeling belief in those bold, beautiful colors. Now take that belief and bring it right into your heart. Bring it into your heart, into the core of you, and make it a part of you. And from this day forward, every day, you can begin more and more to believe that better feeling belief. Imagine how good it feels to remind yourself of that belief over and over and over again. Take all the time that you want with that. And when you have that better feeling belief, a part of you, come back and join us all right back here in this room. So what'd you think about that? Nancy, you seem to have a great time with it. You were very, or maybe not, but open your mic and tell me what happened with you. You got to open your mic. Nancy, you got to open your mic.
Well, I would be embarrassed to talk about what I was thinking, so I'll tell you the whole aspect was about taking care of my taxes.
Okay. And do you have a better feeling belief attached to that now?
I do.
That is the point, is it not? And when I work with clients on that, when you're one on one, you can get even more information with each client and you can you can go at their pace. In a group, I go a little quicker. One doesn't have to go quicker, by the way. I do. And one on one, you can tailor it and calibrate to their mood and what's going on with them. But also, once that process is over, you can unpack it and talk about that better feeling belief and talk about how to use it and talk about moving that forward. And the more you talk about the better feeling belief and what that does for them, what is that? Installing the suggestion, compounding, deepening, moving the suggestion on through them to unpack that and talk about it themselves. So, anybody else want to share? Okay, Sherry.
So I loved that you also created an anchor with it, because my better feeling is that there's plenty of space and time for me to complete all of the projects I want to work on in the next year or so. And as you started talking about it dancing around, what started happening for me is sunflowers were dancing around it. Well, directly across from where I'm sitting here in my office, I had an artist come in and paint like a 6-foot tall sunflower on the wall right across from me. So when my clients open up their eyes, that's what they see. So when I opened up my eyes, that's what I saw. So so now I just have to buy more sunflowers to have in my office, because that is the happy anchor that you created for me. So thank you. It was beautiful.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because it gives me an opportunity to say, never assume that you know what the clients are doing. It doesn't matter what you tell them to do or what you don't tell them to do. They're going to do their own thing in their head anyway. I never told anybody to think about flowers.
No,
Sunflowers.
you
And it
had
doesn't
it dancing
matter if
around.
anybody needed
No.
that. Only Sherry needed that, and she
That's right.
did that for herself. So putting something out there and giving your clients the time to do their work, their own internal work, that's a good thing. I've changed my title, by the way. I am still Karen Hand Hypnosis, but I've changed my title and I am now an IT specialist. One of these days, I might tell you my cell phone analogy to hypnosis, but the reason I call myself an IT specialist, not because I can fix your cell phone, but because I am an internal transformation specialist. And it might be internal transformation or it might be internal transformation. And isn't that what we do? Internal transformation, that's what it's all about. Okay, so I've taken up some time. If there aren't any questions, by the way, if anybody would like to have the guidelines of that thing written out, I'll send it to you. Karen@KarenHand.com. Just ask for the dancing letters guidelines, and I'll be happy to send that to you if you're interested in it.
It was exciting. And I don't know how it is, Karen, that I have known you as long as I've known you, and you've gotten away with not sharing that with me.
I kind of was afraid that I'd shared it before, but I do want to give credit where credit is due. I learned that most of the things in my hypnosis repertoire I've learned from Michael Watson, but this one in particular I learned from my friend Linda Williamson, who occasionally comes to our IACT conferences. You may know her.
Well, this gives us a nice segue into our topic for the evening, and in just a couple minutes we're going to introduce Sherry Gilbert. One of the things that I think about hypnosis, and I don't know if you have the right to have an entirely different opinion than I do about this one, by the way. But one of the things that I think that we do with hypnosis is we create metaphors that allow people to utilize them as tools of change and transformation. So, for example, and with all respect, Karen, there are no dancing letters, and we know that on one level, but we still are able to utilize something like that to create an experience. I think of it as a servo mechanism, that when we're developing techniques, we need some way to make the magic happen, some technique. And I'm reminded of ancient Greek theater, where what happens is the situation in the play gets so complicated that there's no possible way to resolve it, and then suddenly lowered into the theater on a crane is one of the gods, who comes down and fixes things. And so I love those kind of techniques, and I'm always looking for sort of creative new ways to express things. So I was watching recently Riverdale. Some of you might know about this. It's the contemporary sort of dark take on Archie and Jughead and Veronica and Betty and and the gang. And it was really interesting because at one point, because of some atomic accident, I can't remember exactly why it was, Jughead was able to read minds. And there was something hiding in Betty's past, because, by the way, she had a serial killer father, but that's a whole other thing. Something hiding in her past, in her psyche, that she was not aware of consciously. And so in order for Jughead to read her mind and for her to get this information out, they agreed that what she needed to do is she needed to visualize some device that would contain the records of her history. And what she visualized was a library of comic books. And of course, because I'm sure that there is such a thing anyway, and they were all labeled Betty in that particular typeface. And then Jughead could go into his mental state and he could see this pile of comic books and read the appropriate episode in order to read Betty's Betty's mind. To me, it just inspired me, because I thought, look how creative, and yet it speaks a language to the psyche that says what this really is about is making this particular internal adjustment, and we've got to have some way to represent it. So it's a beautiful technique, Karen. I love the dancing. I had calypso dancers, which was just really wonderful.
I love the dancing aspect. Well, there are lots of covert suggestions in here, right? The uplifting soundtrack of your life and the dancing letters. It all indicates happiness or, satisfaction or joy. And isn't that what we all are kind of going after anyway?
Yeah. So speaking of metaphors, perhaps you would like to introduce our guest this evening.
I am thrilled to introduce our guest. I will have to admit now that I was so excited, I didn't pull up your bio, Sherry.
Uh-oh.
So what I'm going to do is introduce you and ask you some questions about yourself so you can tell us some things. And I'm sorry about what I leave out in the bio. What I want to tell you guys is I attended Sherry's workshop, Kinetic House Tree Person Drawing. She might say it better than I do. And I love metaphors. I do a metaphor drawing class myself, and I loved it and got some of the best pro tips from her in this class. I just loved it. So I couldn't wait to talk to Michael about, have we had her on, and can we have her on for this? So she is going to do her presentation, and it is all about metaphor and how to have your clients participate in the metaphor. And even though we can't do it exactly the same way that we did in person, I do want you to share some of those great secrets about when you're working with a group in person, some of the things to be instant inductions to returning to your childhood. It's just brilliant, these covert inductions. So Sherry Gilbert, I know, is in Arizona. And it's very hot there, and she is a wonderful hypnotist. And at the last IACT IMDHA conference, she won Chapter of the Year. So we're kind of in competition, but don't tell anybody. I'm only kidding. She does a lot for our industry. I am guessing that you are a certified hypnotherapist, but that would be a guess. So Sherry, what do you call yourself?
I do call myself a certified hypnotherapist. Yes.
And, is that because of state law allows you to, or is there special training to make you a therapist, a hypnotherapist?
In Arizona, we are allowed to use that phrasing, and Arizona guidelines and rules and laws are pretty lax in a lot of areas. So there's good and bad to it. But the good news is I do get to call myself certified hypnotherapist. I have taken tons and tons and tons of training, and I do have a background in psychology, but I've never jumped through the hoops to become a licensed therapist because I really prefer to be a hypnotherapist.
It's quicker, right?
It's way quicker, and there's so many rules to follow, and I wouldn't be able to run my practice the way I actually run it. So I've just chosen to stay to focus on being a hypnotherapist. I also function as a relationship coach, so I do work with couples, and sometimes I use this technique we're going to be talking about tonight when I'm working with couples, in part to get them to calm down if things have gotten a little heated in my office, but also because it's amazing the stuff that shows up.
So that's a little bit of Sherry's history. What got you into hypnosis?
An accident. Yeah, it was totally not just I worked, my first career was working in the corporate world. I was working as a general manager for a technology company, and by most people's standards had a really good gig, and I felt every day like it was sucking my soul out through my eyeballs. And so what I used to think was delaying going to work was actually, I now call it, I was creating my future. I was manifesting my future, because when I was supposed to leave for work every day, I would sit on my couch and I would think about, I didn't know what it was I wanted to do, but I would sit on my couch and think about, wouldn't it be nice to have an office where the lights are really dim and there's soft music in the background, and maybe there's candles burning, and I'm working either one-on-one or in small groups, and I'm doing things that are life-changing and it feeds my soul. And I didn't know what that was, but I would think about it every day when I was procrastinating going to work. And one day, after I'd been doing this for several months, I was walking down to get my mail, and I thought, I'm going to have to go back to college. I have a degree in business, but I didn't want to do anything related to business. I was about 38 years old at the time. So I was thinking, I don't know, am I too old to go back to college? And so that day, as I'm perspiring about the whole idea of having to go back to school, in my mailbox was a course catalog from Southwest Institute of Healing Arts. I'm currently on their faculty now, but at the time I'd never heard of them. And before I opened up the course catalog, I said, whatever class starts next on Tuesday and or Thursday nights, because that's when my son was with his dad, I'm taking that class. I don't care if it's basket weaving. Ended up being Introduction to Hypnotherapy. And I took the class. When I called to register, and out loud, I said, I don't want to be a hypnotherapist, but okay, I promised myself I'd take the class. So I called right then, registered for the class. The woman I spoke to on the phone said, well, if you take the whole certification course, it's cheaper in the long run. And I said, no, I'm not going to be a hypnotherapist. I'm just taking this class. And she's like, okay, crazy woman, but all right. And fell in love and never looked back. That was 22 years ago.
Did she give you a break on the price of the full course?
No.
You have to decide first.
But I didn't care. I honestly didn't care.
We don't care either.
I was so excited and so happy that it was life-changing. And by the time, I always know when you're doing the right thing because the universe paves the way for you. Mm-hmm. By the time we graduated and got my certificate in my hand, I had done a little bit of marketing and I had 5 clients booked already, and slowly weaned my way out of the corporate world. And just this is my extremely joyous life now. So you can't be mad that it cost me a few $100 extra to get here.
Sherry, we're really glad that course was in hypnotherapy, because as you were describing where you were at it in your journey, and I heard you talking about where the lights are dim and maybe candles burning and stuff. I thought, a turban and a crystal ball was in your picture, and I knew.
But when I would describe it to people would say, "You want to be a massage therapist?" And I'm like, "No, I love getting massages. My health was not good. I couldn't stand for 6, 7, 8 hours."
That'd be a great job to be a massage tester.
Yes, I would be happy to be that.
She also could have gotten a flyer that day from the Bunny Ranch, though, in Vegas. So
see,
the universe opened up in the way that it did.
Things happen the way they're supposed to, because I'm not certain I would have done well at pushing 40 at the Bunny Ranch. And at 60 now, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't still be at the Bunny Ranch.
That first class would have been pole dancing. Your life would have been entirely different. But that we're going down a road that we don't even want to go. So, do you think, Sherry? How do you want to run this? Do we want to go ahead and do the?
I can either put up the PowerPoint and run it the way that I did at the conference, or you can have you guys ask me questions and we can talk about it. I'm open to either way, whatever you prefer.
I would love to do it. To do actually the drawings and talk about it.
Yes.
Is everybody in
let's-
agreement with that? Let me know. Show of hands.
Let me just bring up the PowerPoint here and share it. Oops, that is not what I wanted to do. Hang on. From beginning. There we go. All right. So as Karen mentioned, everyone can see that, right? So as Karen mentioned, it's called Kinetic House Tree Person Drawings. And we're just going to have some fun. I know that we're not in person, so I wasn't able to bring you paper and crayons. So whatever you happen to have handy when I'm doing this with groups or with individual clients, I provide just plain 8.5 by 11 paper. You can use cardstock if you got it, but plain paper will work. And I provide brand new boxes of crayons, and we'll talk about why that is in a minute. But you can do this in any way that you like. If you have a pencil near you, if you have a pen near you, if you have markers near you, just take a moment and grab something to play with. The reason I use crayons when I'm able to provide the supplies is that I feel like crayons connect us to a younger age. And so it connects us to a younger inner child energy. And the moment you start using your imagination, the moment you start playing with this, you are opening up your subconscious. You are letting your subconscious talk right onto that piece of paper. And we may be surprised at what it decides to tell you. So let's just jump in. I think I'm going to give you an extra minute on this in case anyone's still scrounging for supplies. I can't see everybody right now. This is really important, so I want to make sure everyone hears this piece. You may do this in any order that you wish. It is important that you do this in whatever order speaks to you. So if you want to draw your house first, draw your house first. If you want to draw your person first, draw your person first. You want to draw your tree first, draw your tree first. But you are going to draw all three of those items first. Because it's a limited amount of time, and I do specifically give them a limited amount of time, I want you to draw those three things first, and then you can add in anything that you want. Okay. So I'm going to pause for questions if anyone wants to unmute themselves and ask me a quick question before we jump in.
How much time are we going to get for the drawings?
I normally give 5 or 6 minutes. I'm going to give 6 or 7 minutes tonight, just because I know some of you may still be looking for supplies. So we'll just go ahead and jump in. Feel free to unmute yourself or put a question in the chat while you're drawing. I will talk just a little bit while you're drawing, just to share some information with you. But again, remember, house tree person in any order that speaks with you. Please don't worry about this being a quality piece of art. Do whatever just comes naturally. I doubt that you'll have worse drawing skills than I do. And you only have to show it to the group if you choose to do so.
And as Sherry mentioned, if anybody has a question, you can unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah, please feel free to ask.
Those of you watching the recording realize all you have to do is grab a piece of paper and a pen and start this thing.
So at about this point, some of you may be judging your work. I'm going to ask you to take a deep breath and let that go. This isn't about quality art. I do allow my clients in the groups that I work with to start over one time and one time only, because we do not want your inner perfectionist to come out to play. This is just about letting your subconscious flow onto that piece of paper. Some of you may find some emotions coming up as you draw. Just notice them and keep drawing. If the emotions are strong, it might be helpful to label them and write them down so that you can come back to them. You have approximately 2.5 minutes left. You want to make sure that you've gotten all 3 of the primary items on your paper soon if you are still working on one of the first 2. If you find that you feel your picture is complete before time runs out, it's okay to stop. Got about 90 seconds left. And just under a minute. Okay, and that is our time. So let's talk a little bit about when to use it, how to use it, and then we'll get into looking at some pictures that I have, but preferably some of you may actually want to share your picture and let us work with your picture a little bit. So decide whether or not that feels safe and comfortable for you. So when and why to use this? Some clients come in and boom, they just share. it's word avalanche. They sit down, open their mouth. I don't ask but one question, and they are often running and sharing everything with me. For other clients, it's not so easy for them to do that. So my clients that struggle with opening up and talking to me, this is a really great tool to do that with. I run a workshop on stress and anxiety and increasing oxytocin levels. And we use this activity in that group as well. And it's fun to watch. People tend to get pretty lighthearted with it. And some people get really peaceful with it. And for other people, it will bring up some deeper emotions. So as you give them the opportunity to do this, you get to observe them. And are they a perfectionist? Do they get a little frustrated when you won't let them keep starting over again? Are they unwilling to work with crayons and they really would prefer to have colored pencils, because that means they want to avoid some of that earlier childhood stuff. They want to stay more in their safer adult energy. Are they coloring frantically? Are they being very methodical? There's so many things that you can tell just by simply observing the way that they go about this. Is their energy shifts and their energy changes as they go through it, even before we get a chance to take a look at their picture, and even before we get a chance to ask them any questions about this. One of the things I want to share with you about this is this concept of a kinetic house tree person drawing. It's a newer concept. You might have been exposed to house tree person drawings where you do a house on one piece of paper, the person on another, and etc. But the interaction between these three primary objects in the drawing is really very important. Is the tree leaning over the house and maybe about to crush the house? Is the person considerably bigger than the tree or the house? Is the person someone other than themselves? Are they drawing themselves, or are they drawing someone else? What they drew first can have an impact on what's really most important to them right now. So the concept of letting these things interact with each other is really helpful in being able to get a feel for what's going on with them. So a lot of this comes from, I don't know if it's going to be backwards. It's backwards. So I will read the name of it to you. Kinetic House Tree Person Drawings, an Interpretive Manual. And it's written by Robert C. Burns. It's a really great book. I did check before conference this year. The price has gone down to a reasonable price. I used to suggest that people not bother to buy it because it was an expensive book, but the price has come down. It's very reasonable now. I think it was about $25 when I looked online in May before the conference. And I think it's interesting to read some of the things in here. However, I want to caution everybody that this is not about you evaluating their picture. This is about you asking informed questions and learning great information. I'm sure you've all had that experience of asking an insightful question, or even a question that didn't seem very insightful at the time, and having this incredible aha moment come up. That's what leads to, oh, okay, we're going to do a session on that. We're going to dig in more on that. And as you dig into some of that great information, what you may find is that the emotion comes up with that client right then. And that allows you to go directly into the session. You don't have to stop what you're doing, put their feet up, start doing an induction. You don't have to do that. They're already in that stage. I'll just say to them, okay, that's great. I want you to tell me more about that. And now I'm going to have you close your eyes and keep telling me about that. Tell me more about that. I'll start asking more questions. And that just leads them straight into hypnosis, because when we're drawing, we've gone into at least a light stage of hypnosis. When we're emotional, that's a bridge right into the subconscious. All of that is already flowing. So it may seem like, oh, particularly for those of you that do hour-long sessions, oh gosh, to spend the setup time for this and the time for that, it's going to be challenging, but you're going to get some of your time back because a lot of the time you'll go directly into doing the hypnosis part of your session. So please feel free to post questions and interrupt. I get excited talking about this, but you're more than welcome to interrupt me if you would like to do so. So I love it for that because it really creates this deep connection with whatever we're going to do in hypnosis right away. I don't have to figure out how we're going to get into it. I don't have to disrupt what their thought process is, what their emotion is. We're just going to flow right into it. I got started using this a lot when I was working a lot with infertility issues. And a lot of times these clients came in and they had told their journey and their story to doctor after doctor, nurse after nurse, practitioner after practitioner. And a doctor referred them to come in and see me. And the last thing they wanted to do was tell me their journey again. And so giving them this opportunity to play and be a little silly and get connected with all the colors in the crayon box, that opened things up so they didn't really have to tell me their whole journey, because I actually honestly didn't need to know their whole journey. I needed to know what their subconscious was concerned about right now. So one of the things that happened for me when I learned about this tool originally was that the number 13 kept coming up. In my case, I originally did this on separate sheets of paper. It was not Kinetic, it was separate. And so it took a little bit longer for the connections to come into place. The tree I had drawn was an apple tree from a house. I'm a military brat. I've lived all over the world. And I drew an apple tree that had been in the backyard of a house we lived at in Colorado for a year. And without realizing it, I had drawn 13 apples in the tree. Then the house I drew was a house that we lived at when we lived on base in Japan. And it did not have an address on the house, but the address was actually 13 Perimeter Road. And I had written the number 13 above the door. Then the person I drew was me, and I had drawn myself and written down that I was 13 years old. And there were several other connections to 13 as well that would have maybe stood out sooner and faster had I put them all on the same page. And so the person who was working with me was like, well, what happened when you were 13? And like, I don't know. I don't really even remember being 13 years old, but we went into hypnosis, and darn if there wasn't some stuff for when I was 13 years old that had to be cleared out. Something else that showed up in my picture, and this was very early on in my hypnotherapy world. I was still deciding whether or not to finish a psychology degree or do my master's in holistic health or something different. And so I kind of felt like I was straddling two different worlds, and how I had drawn myself, which I wasn't sure if it was because of my limited art skills, but my feet were like one to the right and one to the left. Instead of my feet going forward, I had one foot going one direction, one foot going another direction. And so as we started digging into that, I realized how much internal strife was happening for me because of kind of having my feet in different worlds. And so that's actually what helped me decide, what path I was going down. And it was a tremendous relief for me. So I had a number of really amazing things come up for me doing these drawings. And it wasn't even the Kinetic version, which I learned several years later. So I just love this technique because you just don't know what's going to show up. I don't explain to the client what's going to happen. I do it just like I did with you guys. Let's just throw you in. Here's the crayons, here's the paper. The only rule is that in the allotted amount of time, you get to draw a house, a tree, and a person in any order. And once those three things are drawn, you can add anything else you want to draw. And then we just go from there. I'll pause here for a minute in case there's any questions or comments. So before we're done this evening, I'm going to post in the chat a link to a Google Doc. That is a handout that I gave out at the conference. It has a lot of good information about this on it so that you'll have access to that. For some reason you have trouble downloading the Google Doc, you can email me this evening or tomorrow and I will email it back to you. Let me give you just a little bit of information on what we're looking for in this, and then we're going to play with asking some questions with this. So if the person draws their tree first, what's potential, and remember potential on this, because we're not evaluating and telling them what this means. We simply want to ask them what it means to them. So I would ask, tell me which of the three things you drew first. Well, I drew the tree first. So we know that most of the time when the tree is drawn first, that life, energy, and growth are very important to the person drawing the picture. And this is typical of people trying to grow, or maybe they're trying to stay alive. And that might mean physically alive, but it can also mean alive in a relationship, alive in a profession, alive in many different ways. If a person is really quite depressed or maybe actually suicidal, they will often draw that tree first. And of course, you have to draw look at the tree as a whole and how it interacts to really begin to understand it. Is the tree attached to something? Is it floating above the ground, or is it solid on the ground? Is the tree healthy and full and vibrant, or is the tree dying or dead? Are there holes, squirrel holes in the tree? Because all of these things can help make the meaning of the tree get clearer. But please, please, please avoid attempting to interpret it for yourself. We all have this little desire inside of us to figure things out for people, but we want to avoid that. Just the same as if I'm doing an interactive hypnosis session with somebody and their mother shows up in a situation that we didn't invite their mother into, I'm not going to assume what that means. I'm going to ask my client what that means. I want you to do the same thing here. What do you think that means? When you think about that, what comes up for you when you were drawing it? How did you feel? If they've drawn their house first, it may show that they need to feel more connected to the earth, more grounded, more centered. It may mean that they're not as in their body as they need to be, and they may have some needs or maybe even some obsessions that are showing up. They may feel a need to connect to society. I'm finding post-COVID, it's a little bit better now because people are getting out and about and doing their thing again. But after everybody had been home alone for a while, I noticed a lot of houses getting drawn first because it's a need to belong to humanity, to society, to community. The house can also show a need for success or a scorn for success. It can mean nurturing. It can mean giving and receiving nurturing or joy. So there's a lot of things about home, and that may also lead you to, is that their current home? Is that a home that they lived in a long time ago? Because the time frame may be important as well. And if they drew the person first, first off, who is this person? Is it the person drawing the picture, or is it somebody else? Are they showing off, or are they kind of hiding? Are they front and center? Are they back behind a tree, back behind the house? It may mean that they're having some issues with the particular person, excuse me, that they drew. Those issues don't necessarily have to be negative. They might be positive. It might be someone that they've lost either recently or long ago. It might be someone that they love. It might be someone that they're having a lot of trouble with. I had a client in recently, and it turned out she drew the person who was bullying her in her office. Sometimes it's a character. It's not really a person. It's a person or an anti-hero that they might have seen in a TV show. I saw that a lot actually as the Marvel movies started becoming really popular. So And in summary on that, in reviewing the client's drawing, you want to look at the relationships between the house, the tree, and the person. How are they interacting? What's the feeling that the drawing gives you? It doesn't necessarily mean that that feeling is true for the client, but it gives you a jumping off place for asking questions. Are there any numbers represented? If there's flowers, count the flowers. If there's apples, count the apples. Numbers can indicate the age of a trauma or a major life event. Doesn't have to be bad. It could be something good. Are there any features that are exaggerated or missing, like no windows, no hands? Is the person in the drawing your client or someone else? If it's someone else, why are they in the drawing? Does the house look safe and inviting? Is there a door, and is the door big enough for you to actually enter? Are there windows? Are there bars on the windows? Is the person hiding in the house or out in the open? This is an art rather than a science, but look for symbolism, look for metaphor, and then ask. Please don't make an assumption that that's what it would mean to you. We need to find out what it means to this client. And we're going to find out what it means to them on a conscious level, perhaps. Sometimes they know, sometimes they don't. And then we want to find out what it means to them on a subconscious level. So I'll pause here again. Any questions that anyone wants to share?
I'd like to just share an observation, Sherry, and that is when I did this with you before at the conference, we had crayons and all of that. And I remember all of the adults basically opened that box and smelled them. I love that. And my drawing was similar, but younger. This one, I'm on a piece of paper with a pen. I would look down and, oh, that's me dressed like I am today, right? With my hair like it is today. And oh, my eyes are like they are today. So that was an interesting thing for me to realize, that I did not go as deeply into my childhood as I did with that fresh box of crayons. That could be a coincidence. It could be whatever, but I just wanted to share that with you.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because I do think it's true. And it's why I do crayons and why it's always a fresh box of crayons. They are the first person to draw with those crayons. And I typically send those crayons home for them to play with. And this is perfect time that we're talking about this evening, because back to school shopping will be coming up soon. And at back to school shopping, I go stock up. So I go stock up and I just go buy, because you can go usually pick them up for about 99 cents a box. And I just fill one of my drawers here in my office with crayons. And I try and get the box that's, you know, at least 2 rows of colors, sometimes 3 or 4 rows, depends on what's available. You don't necessarily have to get expensive crayons. So because these are adults, even though they're probably going to do a little inner child work with it, we can pretty much safely assume they won't eat them. So if it doesn't say non-toxic on the box and you're a little uncertain about it, you should be fine. But I always give them a fresh box. Nice, clean, pointed. Do you remember, I loved being a kid and doing the back to school shopping and brand new pencils and a brand new notebook and brand new crayons. And it felt like everything was so full of potential and happy and joyful. So I think that that's an important piece of it. So watch for Target, Walmart, those kind of places to have their back to school shopping. If you've got a dollar store near you, that's usually a good place to hit up for crayons too, and just stock up on them. Yeah.
Another thing to share, Sherry, is that when we've got to remember not to put our own stuff in this when we're talking to our clients. What I noticed was similar, and I didn't notice it until you said, oh, if they're hiding behind the tree or hiding in a house. And I kind of chuckled to myself, I would have never considered that. In both drawings, I am front and center.
Yes.
Because of course my spirit animal is the peacock.
I love it.
But I had to chuckle that if I were doing this with a client and they were hiding in the house, it would have been an eye-opening experience at that moment.
Yes.
Oh, tell me about hiding in the house. I never would have considered it. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, it's actually very important. As an introvert, and most people who know me very well are shocked to find out I'm an introvert. I actually identify as an ambivert, but most people know what introvert is. I might be hiding in the house. If I'm recharging, I don't want to come out and play. I'm going to go and be in my house, and I'm going to pull the shades tight. And if you knock on my door, I'm going to peek out. And why are you here? I didn't invite you. So some of it is that you may learn about who they are today, but so you might look at that. Oh, they're hiding in the house. They don't feel safe. But for me, that's my safe place, is to be in my house. My house is my castle. When my energy gets low, I go home. I'm in my house. My doors are locked. I live in a townhouse, so I actually draw all my drapes because I don't want my neighbors going by going, oh, they're sharing their living room. Let's stop and say hi, because I don't want to say hi. So I actually close my drapes and kind of hide in my house. So it actually would be a happy me. But you might not know that unless you ask me the question. So if you just assume it means, Sherry doesn't feel safe, and you do a session around me feeling safe, you've wasted a session, because that wouldn't be the issue. Thank you for bringing that up. That was great. So I do have some pictures from the book that we can look at and practice asking questions of and all of that. But I think it'd be way more fun if anyone's feeling brave enough to hold their picture up. And it's a little bit hard on camera, but we've done it on camera before. The first year of COVID, when the IACT IMDHA conference went online, we did this online, and people held it up to their camera, and it was great. So if anyone feels really brave and would like to show their picture, please don't feel bad if you don't. It's okay. Then let us practice asking some questions.
Sherry, could you stop screen sharing? It might make it a little easier to do.
Yes, thank you.
And Brenda is already holding hers up, so it looks like she's very willing.
Oh, perfect.
So Brenda, if you'll say something, then we can get you on the screen. If you'll unmute yourself, Brenda.
Okay.
Now, if you'll
Go
talk
ahead.
for a moment.
Fantastic. Thank you. So what I'm going to ask everyone to do first, and feel free to unmute yourself and just speak up if you like, is what emotion, what thought, what feeling, how does your body feel as you look at Brenda's picture?
Brenda, please say something again so we can activate the camera on you.
I enjoyed this.
That's good. So think about what questions you would want to ask Brenda. One of the first questions I would ask is, Brenda, tell me about your picture and how you felt while drawing it.
I was kind of in the zone. I love art. I felt peaceful. I'm very tired, but I was aware. I started with the tree first, then I did the house, and then the person.
Okay. So as I was talking about what the tree might represent and what the house might represent and what the person might represent, did anything come up for you?
Yeah, the tree was about expansion and growing. I'm always learning new things, new processes, more certifications. So I feel growth.
Good.
There's leaves, there's I don't know, apples or whatever they are. It's some fruit. So
Can you count the fruit for me, please?
yeah, there's 10. I already did. There's 10.
Good. 10. Tell me
That I
about.
don't know what that. I don't know what that means. I don't know what 10 is.
So it
I just
could be
drew it.
something going on around when you were 10. It could be something about something 10 years ago. It could be, a representation of what 10 means to you. If you're into numerology, 10 becomes 1, and you could
One.
look at the number 1 and see the new beginnings, which kind of fits into your tree. I notice, and it's a little hard to tell here, and it may be just because you're a really good artist here. So I'm glad I'm not showing mine after years, because you're a much better artist than me. And it may be that you're creating texture about halfway up the trunk. Is that just some texture that you drew there, or is that a hole in the tree where a squirrel might be or something? What is that?
Yeah, it's either like a hole or where a branch was cut off.
Okay.
I live on a mountain, so I'm very tree oriented.
What could possibly be meant when we draw a tree where there's that kind of scar or hole on the tree is look at how far up that trunk it goes. And I would say from looking at it on screen, it looks like it's about halfway up the trunk. So cut your current age in half and think about what may have been going on in your life at that point. Now, I'm not going to ask you anything too personal tonight because we're being recorded. But if you were in my office, I would have dug a little deeper about age 10 or 10 years ago. And I would dig a little bit around what happened at midpoint in your life. And is there anything there? There might not be. Or we may find that consciously she doesn't recall it. But in hypnosis, if I ask those questions again, something powerful shows up.
Yeah, I don't remember anything at 10. Numerology, I do connect with a lot. So maybe it is the new beginnings. I'm in a transition, so trying to expand the practice. Halfway, yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on in the middle of my life.
Okay. So if you were in my office and we were going to do a session, that might be where we go. Tell me a little bit more about your house.
Well, it's 2 stories. There's a door. So, the first thing came out was coming and going.
Mm, like that.
The roof is tilted because I just like art and I like to create new things and different things. I think I have some kind of fluidity within me. The chimney as well is a little crooked. So it was touching into that more the child having fun. But as Karen said, I do feel more adult while I was drawing this with the pen instead of crayon.
Yeah. Is that a house that you have lived in or you do live in?
I asked that myself. It may be a representation of where I'm living now because I do have a basement, but I've never really lived in a 2-story home.
Okay. Sometimes it's about the way that we kind of learn to draw too. So sometimes it's about, that we've just instinctively draw a house like that. So it doesn't always mean something.
Right.
And Brenda's a very good artist, but if she wasn't as good of an artist, some of it may be a limitation with her art rather than something important in the meaning of the picture. So you have to make some space with that. Dawn put up in the chat, I just saw it come up, something interesting, and I can't see this myself. But yeah, now that I see that what he's saying, there's a branch that's coming off of your tree that does not appear to have any leaves. Anything that comes to you about that?
Well, I think, as I said, I live in the woods, so that's a very common sight for me.
Mm-hmm.
But probably it does connect with something deeper. If I went into meditation or hypnosis, I can probably connect with something like that. That would be, broken or dead, dropped limb.
Yeah. Well, I think it's an interesting connection that limb that is coming out is fairly close to where the scar is on the tree. So it might be fun to explore around that middle of your life. Was there a journey that you took to the side for a little bit before coming back to your main journey?
Oh, I started having children.
Yeah, so that might be something, because you drew it, I would want to explore it. And so we probably have about 3 hypnosis sessions already to go play with and explore. But I want to open it up and let other people ask some questions, because Brenda's being such a good sport. So you can do it through the chat as Dawn did, or you can unmute yourself and ask. Just remember, if you unmute yourself and speak, I think you're going to be on the recording, and as long as you're comfortable with that.
Who's the person? I don't know. It's just a person. She said to draw a person, so I just drew a person.
Okay. When you were drawing the person, did you have any particular thoughts or feelings?
No, I was just really focused in drawing, just play.
Mhm.
And it's perfectly okay for something not to mean anything, is it not?
Completely, completely. Yeah. Sometimes we're just going to draw things.
But I did notice that the feet were going left and right, and right now I'm being pulled in different directions and trying to figure out what is the best step for me. You know, that is next. And I don't know if you have anything to say about this, but the hands are in the pockets.
Oh, interesting.
I
can't
never
see that.
usually draw. I don't normally draw people to begin with. I don't do very well with drawing people, but the hands are in the pockets.
So
But
do you
there's a
feel
smile
like
on the
you-
face. So
Did you feel like you drew the hands in the pocket because that was easier than drawing hands? Or was that a subconscious thing about, hands are about accomplishment, hands are about being able to do for ourselves? Was it just easier to not draw hands?
I think what I'm feeling right now is that I feel like my hands are tied because I don't know certain choices, what choices I'm going to be making.
Good. Thank you. You were a great sport. Thank you so much. I so appreciate you being willing to do that. Thank you. Everybody, let's give her a nice round of applause. That's a little intimidating to do that in this kind of situation. So I so appreciate you. It's always more fun to do it with someone's real drawing rather than something out of the book, if we can do that. So I think I have a few more minutes before I need to wrap up. So does someone else have a picture that they want to share with us? Alfred?
Yes. Let's see if everyone can see this.
Come up just a little bit higher, please. Okay, there we go. Good. So tell us about what it felt like for you as you were drawing it.
It felt good because I felt I was being protective.
Okay, tell me more about that.
The first thing I drew was the house, and I drew that immediately. And that's pretty much a reflection of the house that I don't live in, but my ex-wife does. And which I really like. That's a 2-story house, which I really like a lot, and want to help her keep it.
Would you lift your drawing up just a little bit?
That better?
Yeah. Oh, you got a dog in there too. Yeah, lift it up a little bit more because there's more down there to the bottom.
How's that?
Yeah, cool. Now that we lifted it up, we can see roots coming out of the tree into the ground. I mean, that's
Yes,
an
very
interesting.
grounded. And you said you drew it in what order again, please, Alfred?
I went house, tree, then me.
Okay. So I think it's an interesting, and I promise not to dive too deep on this since this is kind of a public format, but I think it's a lovely thing that you drew that house first and that there's a focus of helping your ex-wife keep that house. Is there anything you feel comfortable sharing about that, or is that private?
No, it's not. I can share about it. We're actually separated, been separated for quite a while, but we're still connected financially very strongly. And I just have a sense of, even though we haven't lived together for quite a while, I still have a sense of being part of the family.
Mhm.
And so the house was the first thing that I want to, I guess, still maintain a family relationship. And the tree came next, and the tree was there to protect it from any kind of damage. And I did it to block out the sun. I have the sun that's behind a tree that can't get to the house.
Okay. Can you tell us more about protecting the house from the sun?
Yeah, I want it to be something that I give my children, that we're going to give our children. It's a very nice house, and it's something that I want them to have, and I want to protect it so that they can use it and keep it.
That's
And then that's me there waving with a smile, saying I've done it.
Yay, success.
Yes.
And tell us about the dog.
The dog's name is Roxy. That's a Belgian Malamute mix that I have, which I absolutely love her. And she's, I guess, subconsciously part of this. I don't know why I put her in there, but I did. She was the last thing that I added.
Mhm. How did you feel as you drew her?
Very happy, very enlightened, very like I wanted her in there, like she's part of this.
Love that. Love that. So if this was, again, more private, I would kind of dive into where else is he getting this sense of protection? Where else is he getting this sense of family and community, feeling grounded? It's beautiful that this part of his life is still giving him all of this, and where else is that coming in? So other questions that people want to ask. I always start with, how does it make me feel when I look at that? And I let that inform the questions I'm going to ask. So who's got a question for Alfred?
Who's in that house today?
My estranged wife.
In this photo?
Yeah, in the house. She's currently living in the house.
Yeah. I only asked because there's smoke coming out of the chimney, so it appears that someone's home.
Yes, she is.
I was curious about that, if I might. Alfred, as soon as he started describing his thing, I realized how incredibly similar mine and his were in some ways, and in some ways different. But it was like, well, wait, he's got. And here's the thing that I suspect that people do often, aside, of course, from the house and the tree and the person, is he has smoke coming out of the chimney. He has a sun in the sky. He has birds flying, as I do, and I drew the house first, but I understood that I needed to draw it in such a way that when I drew the tree could be going over the top of and protecting the house. So when he said that, I thought, oh, isn't that unusual? That but I didn't draw mine in any particular order. That is, I drew the house in a place where I could then put the tree, but I thought about the tree first, and I got only at the beginning of the house, I drew a window so that I could have my person is inside the house, which is a difference. And dancing a calypso, probably influenced by Karen Hand a little bit earlier this evening. And I don't want to take this away from Alfred. We're really looking at his, but I did notice that I added something that for somehow I was compelled to do, and that is I put a couple of garbage cans on the side of the house because I knew that I was going to need to have some place to take out the trash. But
okay,
but
I love that detail.
I'd like to ask Alfred this, just because I'm curious, and I don't know if it's the right format or the right way to do it. But you've got smoke coming out of your chimney, and yet you have a sun in the sky that is apparently strong enough that the house needs protection from it. So it's weird that to me at least, I thought it was weird that I've got the middle of the summer, there is a fire in the fireplace, and and curiously, it seems that way with Alfred. Do you have a sense of that
Yeah, the home is the picture still in focus
Yeah.
there?
Yes.
The home with the smoke coming out means it's livable, a livable home, and everyone there is comfortable and very happy. So it's still a home from the heart.
Lovely.
And then
Go ahead.
the tree is to protect it from anything that may try and damage it or hurt it, which to me, the sun is very hot and can burn a lot of things.
Yeah. Nice.
So
I
that's,
think that that's a really interesting point because, Michael was seeing it logically and Alfred drew it emotionally because it was about it being a livable, happy home. And I think that's where the questions are so great because if Michael hadn't asked that question, he would have missed that piece of information.
Well, home is where the hearth is.
Yeah.
It looks like,
Yes.
it looks like there are two suns in that picture.
Mhm.
There's a dark circle right behind or above the tree.
I think that may be a hole in the paper, Don.
Oh, I see. Okay.
yeah, that's,
Yeah, he's
there's a whole
drawing
other-
on notebook paper.
Okay.
So it was a comment, and I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to read the whole comment, and see who it came from. It flashes by so quickly. That came up in the chat about how we learn to draw things because there's so much truth to that. I think a lot of people did learn to draw a house with smoke coming out of the chimney. I think a lot of people did learn to draw, things a certain way. And sometimes it's a limitation in their artistic ability. If you're looking at a drawing of mine, that's a real issue. So we have to ask a lot of great questions to gather that information, very open-ended questions. Tell me more about this. Well, how did you feel with that? So what did you notice about? And get a lot of different information that you can gather up. So I love that both Alfred and Michael had protection show up as really important fixtures in the way that they drew their pictures. So honestly, I would explore that more and see where is that such a strong positive energy for them. Is there anything more about that we need to embrace? And is there any way in which in their life that sabotages them? So I would ask a lot more questions about that, but we're kind of out of time, so I won't. And I don't want to get too personal in this environment, but
I would like to ask one other question of you, Sherry.
Please.
When you gather this information, then what? How do you
Then-
transfer this into then sessions?
and then we're going to jump in. And so like in Brenda's, I came up with, I didn't write it all down, but probably 4, maybe 5 different things I wanted to explore. And so I would probably ask her which of those things felt more relevant to her current day life, and which of those things might clear a path for her more significantly. And we would just jump in and explore it. I might also jump in and just ask the subconscious to release all limits on time and space, to scan all levels, and share with us what in that drawing is the most important thing that we need to explore, heal, release, or resolve to help the client achieve their goal or help them feel a certain way, whatever that might be. So you can do it a bunch of different ways. If it brought up a lot of emotion right then and there, I would just have the client close their eyes and we would use that emotion as the conduit right into hypnosis and connect right then. But yeah, it's taking it all right into that session. So it's a little bit different every single time because what you get out of it's a little bit different every single time. I have done this for so long. I've never done it and been like, now I still don't know what to do in hypnosis. There's always something amazing that comes from it.
And if you see a client 2, 3, 4 times, multiple times, whatever it is, do they do a new drawing each time? Do you use the old drawing or do you move on to something else entirely?
So if several things came up, sometimes I'll go back and touch on something that came up in the old drawing. But a lot of times I'll have them do a new drawing for me. Sometimes they ask to do a new drawing. They had a lot of fun with it. They want to do it again. So always, if you get this started, make sure you always have paper and crayons on hand, because they're going to be really sad if you don't. Sometimes they start bringing you pictures. I've had people take a picture of a drawing they did at home and text it to me and say, tell me what you think. And I don't like to use drawings that they've done at home, because the little inner perfectionist gets opportunity to clean it up, start again. And I don't want them to do that. I want it to be the stuff that just came out first. Don't look at it and go, oh, that's a scraggly looking tree. Let me start again and give her a pretty tree, because the scraggly looking tree is what I want to talk to you about. I'm not looking for something I can hang on the wall in my house. I want to gather the information and dig deep with you.
And man, I could do this for another hour or so, but unfortunately,
There's never enough time.
Sherry, thank you for wonderful,
welcome.
wonderful information and a lot of fun tonight.
And thank you, Alfred. I don't think I thanked you. And thank you, Michael, for talking about your pictures with us. I know that that's a brave thing to do. So I appreciate you.
Well, it's been lovely. So in a moment, we're going to give you the official send off. So please don't go away just yet, Sherry. And I don't know if we got any. We need to just remind you, Hypnothoughts coming up, hypnosis class coming up. Karen's got one, I've got one, and Galaxy of the Stars. Next thing you know, it'll be just around the corner. So watch your mailboxes for all of that excitement. And gosh, I've just had a thrilling time this evening, and I hope you all have as well.
We need two things before we go. We need the link to the Google Doc.
Yes.
And we're going to close out. So if we put it in the chat, is there another way that we can get it? Or can they just send you an email and you'll send
email me? I am trying to get my link up and working for you, but you can email me. I'm going to put that in the chat too. It's sherry@illuma.life. So I'll put that in the chat for you so that you can do that. And
Sherry, if we could, just for the benefit of people that will see the replay, so they're not going to see the chat, Illuma.
Oh,
So Sherry, SHERRY at Illuma, ILLUMI.life. Okay.
yes.
So that's how you can get in touch with Sherry. And please continue.
Yeah. And the link that I was very careful to copy, so I'd have it for now, is not going into the chat box. So just email me, please email me. I'll make sure I get it to you. And if you're listening to this 6 months down the road because you found it in the file somewhere and you are listening to it, then feel free to email me. Then it's no big deal to just drop you that document. So
Sherry, thank you so much. It's really been wonderful. And we are going to give you the big send off. I just want to say next month at the virtual chapter, we're going to do something a little different. Michael and I are going to do the chapter meeting, and we're going to talk about regression and re-imprinting and demystifying age regression, past life regression, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what we'll be talking about next time, and we want to see you then. Now, is it time to unmute everybody and give Sherry the big send-off?
They have to unmute themselves, of course. But
That's
please
true. Unmute yourself, please. And while, yes, we want to do this, we also want her to have the auditory. Thank you very much.
So, thank you, Sherry.
Thank you for inviting me. I had a blast. And watch for my email, because Michael and Karen, I'll be inviting you to come visit our chapter. And I'll apologize now, we start very late your time, East Coast. So you may want to do it after the time changes.
All right. Good night. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
All right.
Sherry.
Bye.